Salvete! In this lesson, we'll be talking about constructions of place. This will cover three related constructions: the ablative of place where, the accusative of place to which, and the ablative of place from which. Let's start by revisiting the ablative of place where. Now in Chapter 3, we learned that the ablative of place where shows a location. Also in Chapter 3, we said that it can use the Latin preposition in, which translates to the English preposition in or on. In this chapter, we'll add a second preposition that the ablative of place where can use. That second preposition will be sub. In English, sub will mean either under or at the foot of when it's used with the ablative of place where. A couple of examples of this would be in kylo, which would mean in the sky, or sub kylo, under the sky. Since each of those are a location, they're in the ablative case, the ablative of place where. The second construction we'll look at today is the accusative of place to which. Unlike the ablative of place where, the accusative of place to which shows a destination. It shows the place to which you're going. Now pause for a second and try to think of a few actions you might be doing if you had a destination. In all likelihood, the actions you thought of that would have a destination involved were all actions that involved traveling. In order to have a destination, you must be traveling. And we'll see the same thing in our Latin sentences. So the accusative of place to which indicates a destination, will always be paired with some form of travel. There will be three prepositions associated with it in Latin. The first is ad, which means to, toward, or near. Notice that two of those English preps, to and toward, contain the word to in it, which is part of that construction name, accusative of place to which. Now, the accusative of place to which will also use the preps in and sub, just like the ablative of place where, but they'll be translated differently when they have an accusative object. When in has an accusative object and is being used as the accusative of place to which, it'll mean into or onto or against. Notice once again how two of those prepositions contain the word to in them. When sub has an accusative object, it'll mean under, up to, or to the foot of. Notice once again the preposition to within up to and to the foot of. Let's take a look at a couple of examples specifically with in or sub. Now in your notes above for the ablative of place where, we put down in kylo and sub kylo with the ablative, which meant in the sky or under the sky. In contrast, for the accusative of place to which, we'll put down in kylum and sub kylum. Now since these have accusative rather than ablative endings, they'll translate differently. Pause for a moment and see if you can figure out how to translate in kylum and sub kylum correctly. If you did, you got the translations into the sky and up to the sky. The third construction which we'll look at today is the ablative of place from which. So we have two contrasting constructions. One, the accusative of place to which, and the other, the ablative of place from which. So this construction of place will show an origin, a place from which something is arriving. And just like with the accusative of place to which, it will also require a verb of traveling. You can't leave a place, you can't have an origin point if you're not traveling away from it. This construction will use the preps ab, de, and ex. Ab will translate into English as from or away from. De will translate as from or down from. And ex will translate as from or out of. Notice how all three of these preps have the English preposition from somewhere in their translation. And all three of them are used with the ablative of place from which. Some examples of this would be ab oppido, de oppido, and ex oppido. All three of these could be translated as from the town, but they could also each be translated more specifically as away from the town, down from the town, or out of the town. Once again, the last thing we'll do in this lesson is we'll get out our best friends and we'll flip to the constructions section on the noun side of our best friends. In it, we'll fill in the ablative of place where, the ablative of place from which, and the accusative of place to which. By each of these, we might even also put a little hint next to them in parentheses that the accusative of place to which indicates a destination, the ablative of place where indicates a location, and that the ablative of place from which indicates a origin. We'll practice this more the next time we see each other in class. Well, later!